champions, welcome back to a brand new adventure with me, Bella, your climate ranger. Today we are going out with the Department of the Environment to learn all about corals, about how they function, about some of the threats, and about why they are so important to us here in the Cayman Islands. I'm ready. Are you? Let's go. One of DOE's coral experts. Hey Megan!
Hi!
So, Mac, what are we doing out here today?
So we're out here collecting healthy corals that appear to be resilient to the many environmental stressors that they generally face on the reef. And these corals we put into our coral lab and act as parents for the baby corals that will grow and eventually we'll replant them onto the reef.
Cool! Wow, so this is a pretty important fact-finding mission there. Or coral finding mission, I should say. So, what exactly is a coral?
So a coral is a living marine animal that is composed of thousands of tiny polyps, and these polyps house zooxanthellae, which is a type of algae that form a symbiotic relationship with the coral. And so the algae provide the coral with the energy through photosynthesis that it needs to survive, and then it helps convert carbon dioxide into calcium carbonate the coral uses to grow its skeleton. Coral then provide the algae with a home, protection, shelter, and the nutrients that it needs to perform photosynthesis and the functions that it uses.
Wow, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's like a whole little working factory.
Yes, and then all these corals come together to form the entire reef structure, the coral reef.
Cool, thank you. I am now here with Anne, another one of DOE's coral experts. Hi, Anne.
Hi, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. This is beautiful. So, Anne, I wonder if you might tell us, why are coral reefs so important to the marine ecosystem?
So coral reefs only make up 0.1% of all global marine habitats, but they're hugely biodiverse. They hold at least 25% of marine biodiversity. So it's crucial that we impose conservation efforts and spread awareness about how important these ecosystems are, because especially to us as an island nation, they're very close to home.
I agree with that. And so much of our food, so much of our tourism, and so much of other things depend on them, right?
Exactly. The financial gain that we receive from coral reefs is a huge incentive to actually impose these conservation efforts. Not to mention getting to share it with tourists, getting more people in the water, getting to share our kind of slice of heaven here and making sure that it's still here for generations to come.
Exactly. So the marine ecosystem and the coral is a part of it. It's not just important for the marine ecosystem and the life in it, but also for humans and the life out of the sea.
Exactly.
Cool. Thanks, Anne.
Oh, you're welcome.
So now we are here with Steph, one of the other coral reef experts. We got so many of you. We're so grateful. So Steph, could you tell us, how do coral reefs protect us during storms?
Sure. Coral reefs are very important in protecting the coastline from storms. They, as you can see here, right around us, form a barrier almost and dissipate a lot of the wave energy that comes through, which really protects the coastline, especially here in Cayman where we've got a lot of developments right on the coast. So that's definitely a really big help in storms to have that extra layer of protection.
Right, so if we have this layer of protection here and then you go to shore and we have mangroves, they kind of work together, don't they?
Exactly, they sure do.
So they're all linked like that and everybody's protecting us, and yet here we are damaging them. So that's not so good.
But we're working hard to restore them.
You
too.
bet we are. Thanks, Steph. We are surrounded by two huge tanks full of, I guess, what we would call the mom and pops, right?
That's right.
Of all the babies that you've been growing and then hopefully putting back out onto the reef to grow more.
Exactly, yep.
Okay, cool. So there's obviously a need for this in Cayman, as we have some reefs that are getting damaged and that are threatened by things. So what are some of the things that activities that humans are doing that can impact reef systems?
Specifically in terms of human activities, there's unfortunately a lot of things that occur that can cause damage to our reef. For example, actual physical damage to the corals, whether that's from divers or snorkelers out in the water and accidentally bumping into something or rubbing against a coral, or whether it's a bit larger scale with anchor damage from super large cruise ships to smaller everyday boats. Pollution is also another everything that affects the corals. Dumping things into the ocean is never a good idea, never something that we want to do. Overfishing as well can remove a lot of the fish species that actually interact with the corals a lot and also help to keep the reefs clean. And one of the biggest threats that faces corals today is, of course, climate change. Whether it's from ocean acidification or rising sea temperatures that can lead to coral bleaching, that's definitely one of the biggest factors that's also having the biggest impact on our corals.
And again, that's linked to human activity, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We're here with Justin. And Justin, we are in a super technical looking part of the lab. We got, well, that's just distilled water. We got some concentrated reagents and salinity testers and what are these? I see you have some pallets up here with little discs.
Yeah, so up here we've got our settlement racks, and on them they've got little settlement pucks, which is actually where, when we collect the larvae from the corals, that's actually where we settle them onto. And those actually go into these settlement boxes or grow out containers, and those in turn go into our settlement tanks, where they will remain for the next several weeks to months as they grow into nice little coral colonies.
Cool, so there's lots of moving parts.
Absolutely.
In the lab.
There
Cool.
are many moving parts.
And obviously this is all a part of an effort to try and conserve and, you know, repopulate our coral reefs, right? So what are some of the other things that are being done in Cayman to protect our coral reefs?
That's right. So there's a lot that's being done. So other than what we do here in the lab, where we're actually trying to help grow out and breed corals that are more resistant. So we're taking the most resistant, strongest, hardiest corals, and then actually trying to grow them and assist evolution, really, to help have those be the ones out on the reefs, because our coral reefs can't cover or can't really grow with climate change if there are no corals left out on the reefs. And so we have a lot of monitoring efforts that happen. So we regularly actually do photogrammetry, where we're taking pictures of the coral reef. We have long-term studies that are long-term benthic, so long-term studies of basically what the bottom looks like
seafloor.
on the
Cool.
seafloor. They're at specific points, and pictures have been taken over time for well over 10 years now. It's probably running on to 20. And those pictures actually then show what corals, what species, and what coverage is there. And so we get numbers like the coral coverage numbers, so we can say what percentage of the seafloor is covered in corals. From that. We have other assessments that we do, such as the AGRA, which is the Atlantic Gulf Region Reef Assessment Method.
Wow, okay.
That involves doing transects that we swim, and we count the corals that we're finding, identify disease that's in there. And speaking of disease, we have a number of coral diseases that have come through. The Caribbean, unfortunately, is the disease hotspot of the world for coral diseases. We have more diseases than anywhere else. Not specifically Cayman, but the Caribbean region.
Caribbean, okay.
And that being said, probably have actually the hardiest corals that are in existence because of the fact that they've had so many different challenges. But this region just happens to have kind of the perfect storm of, well, storms, as well as a lot of population, people using the reefs, and also climate. Other things that we're doing to protect our coral reefs, in addition to the scientific research, is also management practices. And so here in Cayman, we are fortunate to have been really the leading edge, where we were the first place in the Caribbean to establish marine protected areas in the form of our marine park system. And those marine parks were recently enhanced and upgraded into being marine reserves. So we now actually protect more than 50% of our coastal coral reefs or coastal waters. The global goal is to protect 30%, so we're actually ahead of the curve on that. And we're continuing to do our efforts led by the science. We also have size limits for the fish that are harvested, and also limits on other marine species, because a coral reef isn't just corals and fish. We've also got the limits that we have on conch and lobster, as well as closed seasons for them, and also Nassau groupers, which are a big success story here, where in especially the sister islands over in Little Cayman, there is the Nassau grouper spawning aggregation that has gone from a very small number of fish to actually now in excess of 10,000, thanks to our management practices, where there was there's a closed system or a closed season, and there are restricted areas where fishing is allowed in the areas of that spawning aggregation, so we can give them a chance to actually make more Nassau groupers.
Right, so there are so many amazing things that have been done and are continuing to be done to get us to a more sustainable, healthy, coral, driven future.
Exactly.
Oh, yay! Thank you, Justin.
It's my pleasure.
Remember, you are empowered and capable of making meaningful changes every day for the future of our islands. Now, don't forget to put on your coral reef sunscreen, don't touch coral when you're out on the coral reefs, and get out there and explore our ocean. I'll see you next time, Climate Rangers. Are you ready, guys?
Yeah!